So I believe that there's a written record only that's the best historical, evidence. We got that people were here. Now we got photographs and video and a lot of different things, but when it comes to history, right, you got the written era, you got the pre-written era, and the photographs, the first photographs of war were made in 1847. During the Mexican-American War, an unknown American photographer produced a series of 50 daguerreotypes, some kind of pictures in Saltillo, Mexico. So the photographic era will begin, around the 1850s. So the written record will be what? 1500s, maybe 1492, right? 1600s, 1700s. But 1850, that's the photographic era, so you're going to need to show me some pictures. If you want me, I guess written record still has its place, but it's very limiting at the same time. Anybody could just write something down. Now, when I looked at Costilla County, I looked at several different archaeological digs. There's some people out here that want to say that Native Americans aren't even people. They weren't here 14,000. That never happened. That's all bullshit, right? Bible 6,000 years ago, there's a whole other secret civilization that was here, and instead of giving people that did the thing, let's just make it up, right? Let's just. So there's 7 archaeological digs in Costilla County. Number 1, I'm just going to list them off because this is good information. So 7, maybe 8. Okay, there's the Linger site, the Zapata site, Z-A-P-A-T-A. Linger, L-I-N-G-E-R, Zapata, the Cattle Guard site, the Redden site, the Upper Crossing site, Pike's Stockade area. So Zebulon Pike actually set up, Pike's Peak. In 1807, Thomas Jefferson sent Zebulon Pike over to the west to go discover. He's going to end up right here, 30 minutes away from where I live in Sanford, and he's going to build a stockade, and then he's going to get arrested by the Spanish, and they thought he was a spy, but then they take him all across Mexico and show him all their military and civilians, so they told him more information by arresting him than by letting him, kind of linger on the frontier. So that's an archaeological site. What you want to say, like, Zebulon Pike never came here? That never happened. It was 1807. It never happened, right? East of Sanford. So you got a high-altitude Black Mountain site. That's 5HN55, located 10,000 foot. It's in the San Juan Mountains south of Lake City. So I'm not sure if that's actually Costilla County. I'm just going to talk about archaeological sites, and if it happens to be, they're all definitely Colorado, right? But this is, they're going to use carbon dating 10,000 years ago is what they're going to find out. The high-altitude Black Mountain site, it dates back 10,000 years ago. Stone tools suggest an animal procurement and processing. So these are nomads, right? These are nomads. These are the cattle guard site is what I'm going to, jump into bigger. That's site number 5AL101. And then the Upper Crossing site in Saguache County, that's site 5SH134. And I think there's rock shelters too. I don't know if Upper Crossing and the rock shelters are the same, one and the same. But there's, about a dozen rock shelters, right? They made rock shelters. And that's, who did that? That was a civilization. That was a group of people that's no longer here also. At the Redden site near the town of Hooper, this yielded over 500 Paleo-Indian artifacts. So even if, so the argument against archaeology is that carbon dating is bullshit. It's all bullshit, right? The ratio of carbon-14 to carbon-12 hasn't been consistent. What are you all doing? It hasn't been consistent. It hasn't even predicted this or that or what have you. Okay, let's for a second set carbon dating off to the side. We still found all these damn bones. And we found in Folsom, that's what Stewart's Cattle Guard site is going to be, 5AL101. This is in Costilla County. This is in San Luis. This is actually right up there next to the Great Sand Dunes. The Great Sand Dunes of the San Luis Valley. So cattle guard is the Folsom people. And the Folsom people in Folsom, New Mexico, they found a pile of buffalo bones, or some ancient buffalo, along next to projectile points. So they found buffalo bones right next to a bunch of arrowheads. So what does that mean? Some other, creature, the dogs, the wolves, the coyotes, the mountain lions, the bears started, shaving off some arrowheads, and they killed a bunch of ancient bison. And this is, the more that I read about the Folsom people, and this is how knowledge is built, right? Like math, you start with the addition and the multiplication, and then you just kind of add your knowledge on top of it. That's how you know when you're learning, is when you're actually, filling your cup up with knowledge, and you're learning and you're memorizing, you're like, oh, wow. In case you didn't know how learning works, right? So let's get into the Stewart Cattle Guard, okay? So, the Stewart Cattle Guard is one of several Folsom sites in the San Luis Valley. So it's not just near the Great Sand Dunes, but the Cattle Guard site, like I said, is one of several Folsom sites in the San Luis Valley. Folsom actually took a large swath of Middle America, right, all the way up to Montana, Nevada, down to Mexico, and definitely Colorado. So the Folsom people, they were around 10,000, 6,000 years ago, give or take 1,000 years. So they were, around a long time ago, but what's fascinating about them is that they were only around for 700 years. They only existed for 7 centuries. 700 years, the Folsom people were living in America, and then they were gone. 700 years. How long have we been here? We haven't been here 700 years, 1492, that's only 500 years. We haven't even been here 700 years. So the Folsom people were here longer than we were, and they're gone, right? And they just walked away or some shit. The explanation for that, so one theory is that you had the Ice Age, and then you had a great warming up period. You had a warming up period before the Ice Age or after the Ice Age or some shit, right? So it killed everything off, and then it's warm, and now everybody's like living in the sun, and then it, global warming just, killed everybody off. So the Folsom people were an ancient civilization, and they were, just simple people. But the Folsom people had these fantastic, another fascinating thing about the Folsom people is that they had these fantastic arrowheads. The arrowheads weren't just like little, triangles. The arrowheads, they fluted it, right? So they had a little concave bottom, and then they would flute the, middle, so it would, sail quicker and better. It was good aerodynamics. And then the edges, they would sit there and nape them. They would sit there and just sharpen them to a point. And it would look like it was very delicately done, very time-consuming, and very talented. So they also use very beautiful rocks. So if you find any of these arrowheads, they're beautiful, gorgeous. And if it's amongst a bunch of, ancient buffalo bones, a bunch of bones that they put together, and it's formed a creature that, is unrecognizable for today's era, you have to acknowledge at the very basic level that at the very least you had people around, and they were killing bison, they were killing buffalo, and they're no longer here, right? So there was people here, and there was a bunch of, bones, so that animal existed, and if there's arrowheads, that means humans were killing buffaloes, ancient buffaloes, some point in the past. What time frame? I wouldn't say it was last year. I wouldn't say it was, 20 years ago. I would say it was a great while ago, at the very least. So we could ascertain that much without carbon dating. So what are we going to find out at the Cattle Guard, right? So the Folsom gang, they said, were only at the Cattle Guard site for about a week, and there was about 50 buffaloes that was involved, but they only found 8 whole buffaloes. So they were only at this kill. It was a slaughter fest. They need to kill some buffalo. They needed to live. And I don't know why these little killing fields, I bet there's probably everywhere, actually. So, the sand, the wind blew the sand, and then you saw all these buffalo bones. And the killing happened in the low, sloping sand dunes. So the Folsom people they ambushed the buffalo, but they didn't set a trap. right? Not like a contraption, not a machine. They might have set, what do buffaloes eat? Grass or some shit? I don't know. Or maybe they scared the buffalo into the ditch. I'm not for sure, but eventually once they got them into the sloping sand dunes, then they're in a hole, and then the Folsom people just ambushed and killed them all. And then once they killed all the bison, there was 3 distinct areas. There was the kill spot, then the preparation spot, then there was the residential spot. So they slept in, a cot in a house, nearby. They killed the buffalo nearby, and then another place they prepared the buffalo to eat the buffalo. So the Folsom people apparently spent part of the year moving from camp to camp in migratory bison hunts. So the Folsom people were nomads. And this sounds very much like the Shawnee. So the Shawnee, you got to, go with the herd, go, follow the food. And the Folsom gang, like I said, they dried their meat, they processed the hides, used the skin for, blankets or what have you. They killed a shit ton of buffalo. And then they had a bunch of tools. They had a bunch of specific tools, too. So they repaired their tools, they dried the meat, they processed the hide, and they killed a bunch of bison. Now, this is, like I said, 6,000 to 10,000. This is 10,000 before present, 10,800 years before present. These are very, 10,000, between 6,000 to 10,000. But the carbon dating, we got one piece of evidence says that we had Folsom people that lived here 11,000 years ago. And so, say what you will, but that's one piece of evidence. That's one piece of the puzzle to the whole thing. Now, the sample, there's a lady that is going to study it. She was like the main lady. I'll mention her name later, but I don't know it now. But she had said that, the sample, she did the study, and it was the Smithsonian Institute that did the study, and it was done in 1981 and 1983. So we have, a 40-year-old study. We went and studied this, and we get a look at their study and methodology and all their shit and see what they did and what they found out. That's how we build knowledge, right? So the sample included 393 bison bones, so nearly 400, buffalo or bison bones, 296 lithic tools and fragments, and nearly 12,000 flakes. So lithic tools, fragments, so they got a bunch of like little tiny tools, and I want to get into it a little bit more. I'm kind of just scratching the surface of the cattle guard because I want to see these damn tools, right? I want to actually interview the people that did this so I could get my answers, my questions answered without having to read all the dry stuff that they wrote down. But like I said, their work is there for anybody who wants to look at it. So there was at least 8 bison killed at the cattle guard site in the near the Great Sand Dunes in Costilla County, San Luis Valley, Colorado. Also, there's some speculations, maybe the dogs, the coyotes, or the wolves. Dogs have been here forever. Now, there were some here 50,000 years ago, and then there's a theory the Ice Age wipes them all out, and then we get a second migration of dogs, and then they spread like wildfire again. But I think dogs, anyways, coyotes and wolves, they're speculating that the coyotes and wolves spread the bones around, ate some of the buffalo, ate some of the bison, spread the bones around. So, if they're not just in one spot, they just ate buffalo and just threw the bones everywhere, plus wind, right? There's a lot of reasons why bones would move from one particular spot. So the Folsom people, the term was coined in 1927 by Jesse Dade Figgins, the director of the Colorado Museum of Natural History. So there's some, Colorado connection, right? We're learning stuff. Folsom is a city in New Mexico, and that's where they found the ancient bison bones alongside the gorgeous, beautiful, stunning, gorgeous, beautiful arrowheads, distinctive napped and fluted arrowheads. So, 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, these Folsom people were here, but they were only here for 700 years. So they're basically just like the, European invasion, right? They were here about 500, 600, 700 years, and then they're gone and never to be seen from ever again. And then you're going to have the Archaic Age, and then you're going to have, all the Comanche and Apache and Cheyenne and Arapaho and Kiowa and Zuni and Hopi that ran around Costilla County too. And I'm sure they're related to the Folsom people. In fact, the Folsom people kind of sound like the Anasazi to me, the ancients, right? The people that were here before all of us, the ancients, the Anasazi. So that's who the Folsom people is. The term was coined. And also mention this too. There's a lot of crisscross, all this. It could be, the Apache. The Folsom people could have been the Apache, came up here, lived for a while, and then had to go somewhere else and live somewhere else, and then came back or some shit, right? So I think that to assume some sort of continuity isn't, that's not a dumb idea. So the lady's name is Margaret A. Jodry. So we'll go with Margaret A. Jodry. Jodry. So she found 5 different clusters of burned bone and broken tools where meat processing, food preparation, projectile point production, and other domestic activities had happened. 5 clusters of domestic tools and wares indicate that the camp was made up of 4 to 7 households. How many Folsom people were there? There's 5 different clusters. That's 5 different households. How many per household? 1, 2, 3. Right, so that's 15 to 45 people. Now, Stewart's cattle guard site, it's going to represent the late summer, early fall bison hunting camp, which was occupied by Folsom peoples in the Paleo-Indian period, 10,000 years ago, 8,000 BC. So this is Folsom people, right, in late summer, early fall, went around, needed to kill a bunch of bison, and they killed a bunch of bison at this spot. Probably killed a bunch of bison at a bunch of spots all over that area. The site was discovered in the late 1970s by the Smithsonian Institute's Paleo-Indian program. From 1981-1996, their program operated. Margaret Jodry, let's see, after the Lindenmeyer site, the cattle guard site is the most extensively excavated Folsom site in North America. So if you want to study the Folsom people, check out the Lindenmeyer site, check out Folsom, New Mexico, the Folsom site too, right, the original, but also check out Stewart's Cattle Guard. You check out Stewart, it's the most, and it's named for the location near Cattle Guard, along the road between Mosca and the Great Sand Dunes National Park. So there's a cattle guard, right, just a thing you could drive over, the cows can walk over, and we could drive, and the water can go under. So that's between Mosca and the Great Sand Dunes National Park. It was discovered when wind erosion exposed the bison bones and the prehistoric artifacts in the late 1970s. So they discovered it late 1970s, and then the Smithsonian did an archaeological, major archaeological study, 1981, 1983. Bison butchering station, Folsom campsite. It's the Smithsonian. You're going to tell me that the Smithsonian Institute don't know what the hell they're talking about? So they used carbon dating. There was 14,000 square feet that was excavated. The mass bison kill site was found dating to 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. So that's actually a little bit older than the Folsom people, right? Now, Jodry said that there's 3 distinct areas: the kill site, the butchering and residential area, the hide processing area. The kill involved 49 bison, which Folsom hunters may have trapped in a sand dune. After the kill, butchering was done in the field. Then the meat was taken home and further butchering done at home. The hides were processed in a separate area at the southwest corner of the site. Folsom gang, they did bison kills often enough that they had developed specialized tools and divisions of labor for processing the carcasses. The women had processed the hides to make the clothing and tent covers and used ultra-thin bifaces to cut strips of meat for drying and storage. So very specific specialized tools, ultra-thin bifaces to cut strips of meat, processed hides to make clothing and tent covers. That's fantastic. How are we getting all this information from? They found a bunch of shit in the ground, and we've been able to figure all this stuff out. So this is, fantastic. The Folsom gang, their arrowheads are beautiful. I'm very impressed by their arrowheads today, right? People can make, they said it took a lot of experimentation to find out how they even did it. So we saw the end thing, and then they had to reverse engineer to figure out how the Folsom people even made their arrowheads. So they're not just making special arrowheads, they're also making specialized tools. I don't even know how to make an arrowhead. I couldn't take just 2 rocks and scrape them together and get a nice strong arrowhead out of them. So there's lots of archaeological digs. So it's not just the written record, right? The written record, I believe, Vargas is going to come here. Don Diego de Vargas is going to come into Costilla County 1694. So you would say, at this point, from what I could tell, the Don Diego Vargas coming into Costilla County is the beginning of the historical written record of Costilla County. Now, I bet you the Spanish probably have more information, and they should share it with us if they do. Goddamn Spain. Fucking Spain. You know, Catalonia definitely should have left. But, yeah, so what I understand is the beginning of the written record is 1694. So what happened before 1694? We have to look at archaeological studies, right? We only have just very few pieces of information. But by doing that, right, if we could take and find all this information with a little bit of, think about all this shit we could actually figure out. Like today, like there's a ton of like, you know, trailers and houses and they're burnt down, or they got a bunch of dog houses and just a bunch of rubble and a bunch of shit all around them. And so it's like, where did these people go, right? A whole bunch of people used to live in Costilla County, and they're, you know, the remnants of some sort of civilization. They tried it. They couldn't hack it. The government, you know, give them a hard time about zoning, or perhaps the crime. For whatever reason, there's a lot of empty houses in Costilla County. It's very cold. It's a cold, windy desert, so I bet you some couldn't hack it, but I bet you it's a combination of all those. So, the cattle guard site discovered when wind erosion. Cattle guard site. Look at all this archaeological digs. I'm going to just go through the ones that I got. The Canaro Creek pictographs. I am not impressed by these pictographs. Petroglyphs. So, yeah, we got different names, right? So, there's the Canaro Creek Pictographs Historical Site, Site ID 5SH.48, Saguache County, near La Garita. So, the Canaro Creek Pictographs. There's petroglyphs. I am not impressed by the petroglyphs that's on Rio Grande. It doesn't even look like it. It looks like some asshole just started doing it, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's some bullshit marketing scheme that somebody just, you know, etched in stone 40 years ago. Or perhaps it's been there for, you know, thousands of years. But you could measure the rock, but I don't see how you can, you know, date when it was written. I don't see how you could say when it was written. But there are some pictographs, so it'd be interesting to see some actual pictographs. See, that's how you can tell. Petroglyphs are like astronomy or astrology. The one that's bullshit. All right, the pictographs are the astronomy. That's the actual study of the stars, right? Pictographs. Anyways, you got site ID 5SH48. You got site ID, you know, ID 5HN55, the high altitude Black Mountain site. I'm not sure what those are, but the cattle guard site, that's 5AL101. The Linger site is in Costilla County. The Zapata site is all located just south. The Redden site, Zapata, and Zinger are all located just south of the Great Sand Dunes National Park. So the cattle guard, Zinger, Zapata. The Redden site is near the town of Hooper, yielded over 500 Paleo-Indian artifacts. So you got the Redden site near the town of Hooper. The Upper Crossing site in Saguache, site 5SH134. Those are the rock shelters. And then you got, you know, Pike Stockade, east of Sanford, Conejos County, Colorado. So, yeah, go to Sanford. He came down the Rio Grande, so just maybe 20 minutes or maybe 10 minutes. If I drive 10 minutes up, I'll meet where Zebulon Pike met, but then he's going to go due west, and then he's going to go into Sanford, and there's a creek over there that he, you know, built his little stockade. So, not in the plains. It wasn't like he's like, I'm here and it's obvious. He definitely said, I'm going to, you know, put my little fort in the middle of nowhere. But then a spy, or he came across a Spaniard, then he wrote a letter, and then they came and arrested him. So these are all, you know, archaeological, ancient sort of, you know, artifacts, sites, buildings, shit that's been around that'll tell us what happened before 1694. Also tell us, you know, what happened after 1694 too. But to find any information before 1694, where there's no written record, no photographs, no videos, and so therefore it's all reliant upon archaeology. It's all reliant upon finding these bones and, you know, finding the site, looking at the architecture, the pottery, whatever culture and information, that logic, whatever you can glean from the evidence presented. And you don't want to go too far, but you don't want to undercut yourself either, you know, so you want to balance, right? So, a whole bunch of shit, right? You know, cattle guard site, if that's not the Folsom people that killed all them damn bison, who the fuck killed all them bison? There's no bison around here, so who the fuck did all that? Somebody did it, right? Definitely humans, arrowheads, unless some ancient alien race was around here, some shit, which, you know, that sounds fucking preposterous. So, the cattle guard site near the sand dunes in Costilla County, Stewart's cattle guard site 5AL101 is some, you know, an archaeological site that we could find information about, you know, about the ancient peoples of the past. So it's 2020 now, July 16th, Thursday, 7:09. And that's everything I know about Stewart's cattle guard site 5AL101. Peace.